Hey y'all, what we are going to do today is we're going to be able to take decimals and turn them into fractions. And you'll see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 problems that we're going to do, but before we do that, we need to review place value. So I'm going to go up here, and I have the number 6 and 3,854 10,000s. We're going to review place value right now. So first place value is the number that's directly to the right of the decimal. This is the tenths place value. So in this number, I have the number 3 in the tenths place value. And this makes sense that it's the tenths place value. It might seem a little confusing at first, but if you think about money, so think about if I have 10 cents, that 1 is in the tenths place value. And if I have 10 cents, then I have a dime. And it takes 10 dimes, which is where we get that 10 from, to make 100 or to make a dollar bill. Moving on, the number right next to the tenths place value, this 8 is in the hundredths place value. This also makes sense if we're thinking about money. So if we have 1 penny or something 1 in the hundredths place value, think about pennies. How many pennies does it take to make $1? Well, it takes 100 of them, so that's where hundredths comes from. The next place value is this 5. You may have guessed the 5 is in the thousandths place value. And the last number right here, 4, our 4 is in the 10,000ths place value. You definitely need to know the tenths, hundredths, and thousandths, but most place values past there you won't need to know. And then lastly, this 6 right here, it comes in front of the decimal, so this 6 is in the ones place value. Cool. We got some practice with that, so now we're going to go down and see if we can analyze our own number. So this number is 2.1584, or if it said mathematically, is 2 and 1,584 10,000ths. I want you to think, what place value is the 5 in? What place value is that 5 in? This one is a little bit tricky. While it's 2 place values away from the decimal point, which might make you think that it's in the tens place value, it's actually in the hundredths place value. If we think back to money, that's where the pennies go, and there are 100 pennies in a dollar. Next question, what place value is the 1 in? That's right, it's the tenths place value. If we are looking at our 8, that one is in the thousandths place value, and our 4 is in the 10,000ths place value. So now that we know our place value, we can take a look at our decimals again, and we can start turning them into fractions. Let's take a look at our first number. First, we want to read this number mathematically. This number is 0.3, but we read that mathematically by looking at the place value. And the last place value of the last digit. So the last digit is in the tenths place value. And there are 3 of this number, or 3 tenths. So the decimal 0.3 is the same thing as 3 tenths, which sounds like the fraction 3 over 10. 3 tenths is how we write 0.3 as a fraction. Next problem. Take a look at our next problem. It's 0.51. I want to look at the last place value of the last digit, and that is my 1. What place value is my 1 in? That's right, it's in the hundredths place value. So that means I know that my fraction is going to be out of 100 because the last digit is in the hundredths place value. Well, how many hundredths do I have, or how many out of 100? That's when I just read the number as normal. I have 51 hundredths, so I can write that as the fraction 51 over 100, which is read mathematically as 51 hundredths. Let's take a look at our next problem. Our next one is 0.123. Again, I want to look at my last digit and figure out what place value that is in. What place value is my 3 in? That's right, my last place, or my last digit, is in the thousandths place value, so I know that when I'm writing this as a fraction, it's going to be out of 1,000. And then I can read my number as normal. It's 123. And so we read this decimal, we read the number 0.123 as 123 thousandths, which is also how I can write my fraction, 123 thousandths. Now, so far we've been dealing with decimals that are pretty easy. We haven't been able to reduce any of them. Some decimals that we might see, we can reduce and make into a smaller fraction. So let's take a look at our first one right here. We have 0.75, and I want to make that into a fraction. Well, first thing I want to look at is my last digit. What place value is that last digit in? It is in the hundredths place value, so I know that my denominator of my fraction is 100. And then I take a look, what is my whole number? What's the regular number? That's 75. So this decimal of 0.75 is read as 75 hundredths. It's read the decimal as 0.75 as 75 hundredths, or the fraction 75 over 100. Now we can't stop there because this fraction is not in simplified form. So I'm going to take a look at both of my numbers, 75 and 100. What can I divide both 75 and 100 by? Well, I'm thinking of money, and both of those, I can make both those values out of quarters. So I'm going to divide each of these by 25. So if I take 75 and I divide it by 25, and I take 100 and I divide it by 25, well, 25 goes into 75 3 times, and 25 goes into 100 4 times. So the decimal 75 hundredths simplifies to the fraction 3/4. Last problem that we're going to do, pretty similar to that one, is our decimal 0.65. By now you should be reading these decimals with mathematical language. So this decimal is read as 65 hundredths, and I know that by looking at my last digit. What place value is that digit in? It is in the hundredths place value, so my denominator is 100. Then I just take a look at what the number is. It is 65, so it's 65 100ths. Again, I want to pause and see if I can simplify this fraction at all. Can this fraction be simplified? Well, yes, it can. Moving it up a little bit. This fraction can be simplified. I can see that both this one, the 65 ends in a 5 and the 100 ends in a 0. So I know that I can divide both of these by 5. And now if I don't know this off my top of my head, that's totally fine. I could do 65 divided by 5 and see how many times that 5 goes into 65. I know that that is 13. And now I can do 100 divided by 5. And I can do this again, 100 divided by 5 if I need to. Or I can think of this as, I know that 5 is the same as a nickel. And so I'm thinking, how many nickels are there in a dollar? There are 20. So this decimal 0.65, or my decimal 65 hundredths, simplifies to the fraction, or it can be written as the fraction 3/20. Awesome. You guys have the rest of your packet to do, front and back side. This will come in extremely helpful when we're dealing with repeating or non-terminating decimals into fractions. Good luck.